Good evening, my dearest Tams. Stormy just gently reminded me that after we've done treats, I should turn off all electronics and go to bed, and that is certainly my intent. But I thought, hey, before I go completely dark for the evening, we probably have time for one more chapter of Kinship with All Life. So this is chapter 25, Strange Partners. I have a wonderful working friend who does most of his exploring within the walls of his chemical laboratory not far from Pasadena, California. His name is J. William Jean, and he has acquired a considerable reputation, not only for the many unusual and useful things he produces, but also for his ability to solve seemingly unsolvable problems for the petroleum, rubber, airplane, and other great industries. To most of his professional associates, Jean is a very mysterious fellow. What makes him so is his ability to get results they themselves are unable to achieve, even when using the same formulas and equipment, and, outwardly at least, doing their work in the same way. Curious about this too, I spent quite some time in my friend's laboratory watching him work, listening to him tick mentally, and trying to find out how he was relating himself to the bacteria and other forms of microorganism with which he happened to be working. I had a very limited knowledge of chemistry, and the forms of life that my friend was working with were only a few thousandths of a millimeter long, but gradually I began to penetrate the mystery to discover his secret. His success was established upon the following basis. The first was his firm conviction that all things, regardless of how humans are accustomed to defining and classifying them, are our Creator's purpose and action. The second was his mental attitude towards his tiny business partners, an attitude overflowing with friendliness, admiration, respect, encouragement, and limitless expectancy. The third was his ability in mind and heart to understand and cooperate with them. The fourth was the spontaneous reaction of the bacteria and the other microorganic associates to this kind of treatment. Seldom have I witnessed a more effective two-way functioning of the golden rule, and finding it between a human and microorganisms was a new experience. I went back again and again to learn more about it. Here was a very wise man who had learned that the most effective way to achieve right relations with any living thing is to look for the best in it, and then help the best into the fullest expression. As a result, millions of unicellular organisms, invisible to the naked eye, were turning to him with an enthusiasm that was as startling in its effectiveness as it was in its implications. Certain attitudes and motives in Jean played an important part in his work. In spite of the stresses, strains, and shocks of everyday living, Jean was carrying on in a spirit of high adventure, keen appreciation for being part of it, and friendly identification with everything that lives. In spite of certain appearances to the contrary, he regarded the universe as an exceedingly well-planned, well-managed, and innately good totality. In this totality, the bacteria and other microorganisms were included as full, cooperating fellow beings. Jean's father was a successful construction engineer who taught his son four essential for worthwhile living. For the first of these was to respect all life. The second, to be understanding and tolerant. The third, never to forget that every living thing has a particular and needed job to do in the universe, the universal plan and purpose. The fourth, to lend a helping hand whenever possible. For some time, Jean was also a construction engineer, employing hundreds of men on big jobs. Instead of dealing with men in his employ as so many hired hands, he treated them all as partners. Following his father's advice, he found time to interest himself in their problems. He was alert to be helpful wherever possible, and he experienced over and over again how rewarding the golden rule can be when it is lifted from mere theory and translated into action. One day he decided he had finished his cycle in the construction field Chemistry was opening a new door for him, a door leading into regions as fascinating as they were mysterious. And he became a research engineer, and his laboratory transformed into a kind of magic carpet in which he could fly beyond conventional boundaries in investigating the hidden workings of the greatest of all of all chemists, Mother Nature. In his chemistry explorations, Gene uses the same methods with his bacteria and other microorganic associates that he did with his fellow humans when he was in construction business. In the latter, he practiced the golden rule on each project, giving his best to his fellow workers and getting the best from them. He does the same with the bacteria and other microorganisms, using the golden rule in every detail of his work with them. It became apparent to me, of course, that Gene was using practically the same relationship patterns with his microorganisms that the dog Strongheart had taught me. It was the same pattern that Grace Wiley used with her poisonous snakes, the same pattern that the American Indian chief used with his naked ponies, the same pattern that the Bedouin chief used with his Arabian horses and camels. Like all these people, Gene was making practical use of invisible bridges for friendly and helpful two-way thought traffic. Mental bridges extending from where he was functioning as an intelligent expression of life to where the bacteria and other little fellows were functioning as intelligent expressions of life too. Intuitive bridges built upon that speech, which does not have to be uttered, across which he and the tiny ones could freely send and receive and share. Heart bridges, by means of which Gene could constantly adjust himself to them, rather than demanding that they adjust themselves to him. As a result of all this, Gene had acquired a remarkable knowledge of his invisible but highly effective associates. He understood their attitude towards life, their methods of doing things, their likes and dislikes, and even their ambitions. He knows what they need for their well-being, their peace of mind, and their fullest expression. Gene makes ideal living conditions for the bacteria. Treating them with as much consideration as he would human beings, for whose intelligence and craftsmanship he had the highest respect. And his understanding little friends, for their part, enthusiastically contributed the best they know and the best that they can do. Out of this mutual application of the golden rule, with its rich interblending of integrity, of fellow feeling, of admiration, of loyalty, of enthusiasm, of dedicated service, and of complete sharing, flow all sorts of new and useful products for the greater good of mankind. I hope that your evening, remains of it, is amazing and is productive and is peaceful and insightful and heartwarming and just everything one could hope for. I hope the sleep that follows is restorative and that you wake up tomorrow morning again feeling the love of all creation, our Creator, and of me. I love you, Thames Nicholson, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.